Good afternoon, everyone. I'm your host, Stephen Colbert, and welcome to the post-presidential video call. Thank you, Secretary Clinton and President-elect Trump, for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, Stephen.
Yes, thank you.
For this video call, we're going to focus on the candidates' rhetoric over their campaign rather than policy, because, who cares about policy, right? Well, let's start with you, Mr. Trump. How would you say you convinced the people of America to elect you as president?
First, I painted a bad image of the nation. I made it sound so bad that I am the only one who could fix it. Through using fourth grade language, I made sure everyone, including the not so sophisticated people, understood me. I love verbal intensifiers. I will make the country very, very safe. Also, I love to say politically incorrect things. The first time I say something outrageous, everyone is shocked. But by the 360th time, many people get used to it and somehow start to think it's okay. That's just Trump.
Okay, Mr. Trump, thank you. Now on to you, Ms. Clinton. Would you please let us know what steps you took to try to convince the American people that you were the right candidate?
First of all, thank you so much, Stephen. I focused on equality and opportunity for all, and I filled my speeches with optimism. After all, we do live in an auspicious time. My words are more restrained and my verbs more neutral than Trump's. And also, I like to give people the specifics in a straightforward manner. For example, my plan for caring for women and children, in contrast to Trump's idealistic ambiguity. I remained composed on stage and effectively utilized voice intonations to emphasize key points. And to top it all off, I like to ramble about my credentials as a political leader. Stephen, I did many great things as Secretary of State. For the past 30 years.
Thank you, Mrs. Clinton. Mr. Trump, could you please elaborate on your rhetoric, like how you use words, timing, and so forth?
Of course I can, Steve. Can I call you Steve?
Please don't.
But Colbert, and we've had this conversation before in private, my speech is amazing. I use strong words, very strong and jarring words. I'm the best at timing. I can.
Mrs. Clinton, would you like to respond?
Donald Trump thinks he can win the election solely through demagogy. And apparently, this election did not prove him wrong. Our country has fallen into his trap.
Wrong. It's not a trap.
And I use my credentials to my advantage. For the past 19 years, I worked actively in the Clinton Foundation, which has provided great care for children, opportunities for both men and women, and a grand economic boost. And I've mentioned many times before that Donald Trump does not have the qualities or the character to lead America. We now have to deal with trumped up trickle down economics. And honestly, I thought that all I needed to do was to keep on being sane and bait him into making more offensive statements. I guess I was too overconfident and underestimated him, and also underestimated how much working people wanted change. Unfortunately, many have forgotten that change can be for the worse as well as for the better.
Mr. Trump, you've said a lot of things in your campaign, but what a lot of people would like to know is how has your rhetoric changed in the past few months?
Look, Steve-O, let me tell you about my comments on women first. Everyone seems so mad about that. Anyways, I know how to talk. No one knows talking more than me. When Hillary talked about my comments against women, which was all locker room talk, I attacked back at her. So for example, I go up to her and say that the system is rigged. It's rigged. Well, there were times I tried to be presidential, like at the beginning of the debates. But you know what? Stirring up people's dissatisfaction just works.
Okay, now we're moving on to specific quotes and statements that you've said. This should be fun. Well, President Trump, you said, let me tell you who the immigration system does not serve. It does not serve you, the American people. Doesn't serve you. And you said this in August 2016. What were you trying to accomplish with this quote?
Look, Steve, I wanted to appeal to the American people, the people who are sick and tired of the same old, very old and corrupt America. I needed to show our citizens the cause of the crime and evil in our country. Our policies, for the most part, were really bad. The immigration programs, disaster. Executive orders, abusive.
Mrs. Clinton, you've said on immigration many times that we need comprehensive immigration reform with a pathway to full and equal citizenship. What was your purpose in saying this?
I firmly believe in equal opportunity. Here, I specifically wanted to appeal to the immigrants and make sure that they know I would do everything in my power to protect them and welcome them into our own country, of course, after the necessary background checks.
Wrong.
Thank you, Mrs. Clinton. Mr. Trump, you exclaimed in fury on Twitter in October that DNC Chair Donna Brazile is just another arm of crooked Hillary's rigged system. Unbelievably rigged. This was made after your comments on women were revealed. Why were you so aggressive?
Well, Steve, Washington is crooked. Hillary is just another puppet. A puppet. I needed to show the American people, my people, the corruption in our country. Strong words work. Strong words matter. Capitalization matters. In my comments on women, locker room talk, I have never done anything against a woman, ever. When Hillary attacked me, it was an attack. Like Iraq, I had to defend myself. I have the right to defend. I also have the right to attack.
That's enough, Mr. Trump. You're out of time.
Before we move on, please allow me to express my thoughts. Now, hold on, Donald. First, how can we trust you to be our moral leader if you have not paid a single cent of federal income taxes for the last 2 decades? And since you brought up empty promises, you claim that you will provide more jobs for steel workers. But, Mr. Trump, can you really reverse globalization? Can you turn the 21st century back into the 1970s? Also, if we follow your plan to increase tariffs to protect American industries from foreign competition, we're just hurting ourselves in the long run. Heck, to tell you all the truth, Donald has no plan, no thought after or workable plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Clinton, for that tirade. In a recent Facebook post, you called Trump a disgrace for expressing zero regret for years of pushing a racist conspiracy theory. This was in reference to the birther movement, which regards President Obama's citizenship.
And you know what, Donald? I still agree with that. Trying to undermine the legitimacy of the first black president is deplorable. Since September, I've tried to go even harder on you for the things you said and did, calling your comments about women horrific, and saying that we cannot allow you to be president. I hope that you will be a great president, but if you continue acting and speaking like you have, I am truly terrified for this country.
I think we've all heard enough. Does either one of you have anything else to say?
Thank you, Steve, for letting me participate in this event. I'm grateful for running as the Republican Party nominee and to be the 45th president. As I said before, our nation is one that is filled with untapped potential, which we must harness to rebuild our nation and renew the American dream. My rhetoric reflected this. I started out with harsh statements to paint a dismal picture of our future as Americans. I ended with big, harsh words to instill fear into the people. I paused all the time to let my statements sink in. People that crave change, people that needed it, I made them believe that America was in peril, and it might be. But this election cycle proved more than this. My journey through this election was not a campaign, but a movement, composed of Americans of all races, religions, backgrounds, and beliefs. who want and expect our government to serve the people, and serve the people it will.
Stephen, thank you so much for hosting this post-presidential video call. Throughout my campaign, I have staunchly believed in the equality of men, women, and all races. I hope to make that clear primarily through my policies addressed to both majority and minority groups, whether they be promoting opportunities for women in the workplace, raising taxes on the super rich, or promoting educational opportunities. And also through my suits, white to represent the women's suffrage movement, and purple to represent my support for bipartisanship. Throughout my campaign, I have tried my best to stay optimistic and motivate the country with my words, along with using a lot of we's to establish a closer and more genuine connection between us. Although I did not win this election, I believe that I have made my goals clear. Honestly, this system is rigged. Hey, I won the popular vote. This is a democracy and should reflect the majority's voice.
Thank you very much to both President Trump and Secretary Clinton. At least we're done with this election. Good night, everyone.